All right, let's begin. Hi, everyone. My name is David Brudnell. I'm Chief Revenue Officer here at Flare, and I have Mark Nielsen and Sinead Keneally who will be participating in today's webinar. And we're really excited to be taking you through a new cut of data that's available to the market, as well as giving you some practical advice on how to deal with what's happening in the world today. Just by way of introduction, to give you some context about who the panelists are today and what we'll be speaking about, I'd like to introduce Sinead Keneally. She's the VP and Cultural Leader here at Flare. She also comes from MYOB and represents not only the 160,000 businesses that we have customers in Flare, but also the 1.2 million businesses at MYOB. I'm happy to introduce Mark Nielsen, the CEO and founder of Talent International, one of the world's leading recruitment and talent businesses across Australia. And of course, I've introduced myself today. And what we're going to be talking about today is kind of a story in three parts. We're going to introduce the macroeconomic climate that's happening, looking at some economic drivers that are affecting employee engagement across the nation. And for all of you today, Flare has run the first ever National Employee Benefits Index. And out of that index, we've captured some really interesting findings, which are going to weave into the macroeconomic environment and also give you a first look at what employees are saying and how they're feeling as it relates to the cost of living and inflation crisis that's affecting Australia. We'll then pass it across to Mark. He'll do a review of the actual data from a cultural and talent perspective. And we'll do a deep dive into a case study about a company that gets it right. And then finally, Sinead will come and put a bow on everything, giving us a practical HR practitioner's view of this brave new world that we're in, and leave you hopefully with some really practical advice and tools and techniques for you to be able to implement into your organizations very quickly. So, coincidentally, it's gloomy outside today. And I don't know, I'm a big celestial fan. And, it's this winter solstice here in Australia on the 21st of June. So it is the darkest day of the year. And coincidentally, the economy is looking pretty dark at the moment. Now, why is it dark? Interestingly, out of MYOB, and I mentioned those 1.2 million businesses, many of those who are small businesses who drive our economy. And in a recent study by MYOB, more than half of them are suspecting a recession coming on the horizon. Inflation is at a 30-year high. In actuality, Australia has some of the highest inflationary rates in the world. And the cost of living, if you turn on the television this morning, good old Karl Stefanovic or Kashi, well, he's gone today, but the person who's replacing Kashi is always talking about the cost of living crisis. It's on the tip of everyone's tongue. And also as it relates to the economy, like one of the things that really comes to it, and just a brief pause here, if you notice some of the backgrounds, we're a generative AI hotspot here at Flare. So all the backgrounds that you're looking at have been generated by AI. So there's some really interesting stuff that'll come out of here. On a side story, for all of those people born in the late 1900s, you'll recognize this movie reference of Back to the Future. If you're Generation Z, yes, this was a video on VHS that was created in the late 1900s. So that dates us. But importantly, and getting back to the point about the economy, one of the critical things when it comes to why we are in this inflationary or this cost of living crisis is actually a couple of drivers. One is that wages have been relatively flat over the last decade, and we've had inflation really boom on the back of COVID. So the employees in your organization, your wage, people who are watching this webinar, it has the power that it did 15 years ago. So really our salaries haven't been moving, and they haven't been moving for a long time. And on top of that, you have this inflationary pressure. We're all asking, we're like Oliver Twist, please can I have some more? Because all of the items in the critical basket of goods for the Australian economy are in high single or low double-digit items. Like we all know, case in point and tongue in cheek, a head of lettuce costs $20 today. But most importantly is this is where 96% of all the pay that goes out to your employee goes out the door. And these costs are increasing. Now, something to keep in the back of your mind as we're going through this data is that the average savings rate in Australia is 4%, which means that 96% of the paycheck of your employees is going out the door and going into these particular areas. So, when we look at the inflationary environment, and we're looking at 6.9% inflationary rate currently, is that the average business is giving out a CPI index or CPI increase around 3%. If you work on a financial year, you've gone through that process, and you'll be implementing these new wage increases on July 1st. If you're a calendar year company, it's coming very soon and starting in September or October. But The fact of the matter is that even if you give a 3% or 4% CPI increase, employees' salaries are still going backwards. We're still in a wage deficit. And for all of you companies that offer your employees a total package offering, is that the increases in superannuation, which are effective on July 1st, moving to 11%, are going to again impact the take-home pay of those employees. So we're piling kind of pressure on top of pressure on top of pressure for employees. Now, this is a really interesting stat here, and I think this is one of the things where if I ask you to look at 2 points on this graph, one is the rebound post the GFC, and what we're looking at here is the average compensation increase year on year for an employee. So after the GFC, there's a big rebound of close to 8% wage increases. And then on the back of COVID, like we were all trying to figure out what the world looked like. It was a hot mess. And as a consequence, businesses increase the wages of employees to, keep them alive, keep them safe, keep the businesses going. But now that we're out of COVID, right, 10% wage increases, coupled with the fact that we may be going into a recessionary period, is like you have to ask the question, like, is raising salaries a strategy for a business? And like the short answer is no, right? So businesses must look towards different and cost-effective ways to attract and retain talent, but as well keep them engaged in this inflationary environment that we're in. And one of those areas is benefits, right? It's a really scalable way to do that. And when we started to looking at benefits, there's actually something that's changed. In past recessionary periods, there hasn't been this global event called COVID, which changed the way we work. And again, this is a creative license with generative AI here. And if I use a story here at Flair and by extension MYOB, we're struggling with our hybrid work policy. Is it 2 days? Is it 4 days? Is it a 3-day fortnight? What is it? But the most important thing are the benefits of coming to the office have fundamentally changed. What good is a $3,000 chair if a person is only going to sit in it 1 day a week? What good is a kombucha tap, right? What good is a slide? And another question, has anyone actually gone down the slide in these offices? But that's for a whole other webinar that we'll do. But fundamentally, the benefits have changed. And we wanted to ask that question about which benefits are changing and why, and especially in this new economic environment that we're in. So what we did at Flair is we ran the first ever national employee benefits. Employees nationally and a representative audience, a couple key questions about their financial stress, about their engagement at work, and most importantly, what benefits they are aware of, and also critically, what benefits they actually use. And as we went through this study, we wanted to make sure it was not only nationally representative, but it's an index. So we do this twice a year. We do it during the salary review for financial companies who run a financial year, and we do it during the September and October period when those companies who are running calendar years are able to capture this new and important data about what benefits matter. And we'll get into why they matter and why we specifically chosen this period around the salary review process. And critically with this study, we were able to do not only a weighted and national representative sample of full and part-time employees, but also we're able to contrast this with those employees who have take-home pay benefits. And that's a critical term I want you to remember, because we're going to, and Sinead will take us through that, but the quantitative outcome of take-home pay benefits contrasted in this inflationary environment that we're in, the data suggests that they're very important. So as we get into this, and I'm going to give you just a kind of a top level view, we will be giving out sector reports for everyone on the call. You just have to ask and we can get a deep dive into the data. And we'll be just scratching the surface today about some of the most critical things that we're seeing. And those are financial stress, job satisfaction, and then the interplay of the availability and efficacy of benefits as they relate to these two critical pillars of financial stress and job satisfaction. And interestingly, when I put in the image prompt of stress, dynamic, and landscape, it came out a little bit like Mordor here. But I think, it is dark, right? And what our study has said is that 50% of your employees are financially stressed at the moment. And this is stress as in severely stressed or moderately stressed. 1 in 3 still have struggles with their emotional health. Could this be kind of a consequence of COVID? 1 in 4 are still struggling with their physical health and spending too much time at work. Again, are these echoes of COVID, or is this something new as it relates to the financial stress that people are under? 1 in 5 are spending not enough time with their children and saving for the retirement. And 1 in 6 are unfulfilled at work. That's 15% of your workforce are not fitting in, are not finding purpose in your organization. And one in six are still having personal and relationship issues. And most interestingly, we don't have the time today to go through all 5 of these pillars, but if we focus on that 50% of your employees who are financially stressed, let's dive a little bit more deeply. Now, in here, what we're looking at is the critical and top factors which are causing that financial stress. And there should be no surprises here for everyone. We've done the Oliver Twist preamble, but most importantly, I think everyone on this call will know our current rates that we're paying for our mortgages, the cost of groceries, the cost of transport, unless you're in Melbourne because you can't take transport for the next 2 weeks. But the critical thing here is that 77% of that 50%, so more than 30% of your total workforce are really struggling with the cost of housing. And the leaps in mortgage payments are in the hundreds and thousands of dollars per month, which is far outpacing the salary increases. And so across all of these different all these different areas, we're starting to see this is where most of your paycheck goes. This is where most of everybody's paycheck goes, the 96%. And if this is under double-digit increase pressure, then there's something that's going to have to crack. So now we're going to look at, well, we know the macroeconomic environment. Now we're moving into, well, what are our employees stressed about? Well, how does this interplay with their job satisfaction? And again, an AI-generated prompt is really interesting. When you put HR into any AI prompt, you always get quite a diverse audience, but this one is particularly nightmare fuel, if you ask me. But as we get into this, let's start looking at job satisfaction. Now, we're going to go through a couple statistical slides here, so I want to kind of frame you up here. On the left is the national average. And when we show the data on the right, those are individuals and employees who have take-home pay benefits. So the first call out here is when we ask the question is like, do you feel valued by your supervisor or your manager? And now we all know that people join companies because of their leadership and they leave companies because of their leadership. Now, 1 in 30% of your organization is disengaged at the moment because of their managers. Now, interestingly, when you contrast that with people with benefits, like benefits can't substitute for good management, right? That's clear here. But what we found when we start to look at take-home pay benefits is it's the extremes which really matter. And when you look at those people who significantly agree that they feel valued on both the national average and those take-home pay, those individuals with take-home pay benefits are 40% more likely, there's 40% more of them who significantly agree that their manager is engaging with them in the right way. And also on the bottom end, they're 4 times less likely to say that they significantly disagree, right? That their manager is valuing them. So what we're seeing with those in benefits, and it may not be the benefits themselves, but more of a consequence of a good business and understanding the relationship between benefits as a critical pillar in their engagement strategy is being something very important. As we move to the next one, which is I'm satisfied in the ability to apply my talent at work. Again, we see a marked decrease in those employees who have take-home pay benefits. And most importantly, again, we see at the extremes is that, people are more satisfied and more likely to significantly agree when they are given benefits that are focused on their take-home pay. And when we look at this group of individuals, they're 30% more likely to enjoy their day-to-day responsibilities. And on the extreme end of they're 60% less likely to significantly not like their responsibilities on it. So when we look at job satisfaction and contrasting the national average, and that is the benefits that are currently provided by employers to those employers which have take-home pay focused benefits, there's significant evidence to suggest that they do work. They make their employees more engaged. And as a consequence of being engaged, people are happier to go to work. They skip and they jump towards work in this particular image, right? And it's very clear that the differences in terms of engagement are much higher when you have that quantitative focus around your benefits. Now, the most important question of the day when it comes to this study is the critical question. And it's a straightforward one, is we ask those people, are you thinking about leaving your current employer? And, tragically or scarily, 36%. Now that's the national average. So that means 36 out of 100 people in your organization are thinking about leaving you. Now, when they have take-home pay or quantitatively focused benefits, they are 50% less likely to answer the question in this way. So there's something there. There's a nugget of truth there. There's a nugget of interest that we need to pursue as practitioners to be able to get there. Now, the next question goes, well, Great, David. You've talked about the scary, gloomy macroeconomic environment. We've talked about the importance of take-home pay benefits and employee satisfaction and job opportunity. But now, like, well, what benefits are they? Now, in our study, we asked a litany of benefits, a smorgasbord of them, and we offered a free text response to add more. So importantly, these are benefits of how employees see them, and we covered them all, we believe. And when we went into the top benefits that were offered by employers, good old Cafe Blend 43 was number one, with 65% of you offering that free caffeine hit in your break room. But most importantly, the three top benefits offered by all employers were hardly used. Right, so it goes back to the $3,000 chair with only a bum in it 1 day a week. To, well, is there misalignment between the benefits that are offered today with the benefits that employees need today? And we dove deeper into that, and we asked employees around particular take-home pay or quantitatively focused benefits. And what we're looking at here is the ones that can meaningfully increase your take-home pay. That could be salary sacrificing a laptop, a mobile phone, even a subscription, a novated lease, getting the discount on your healthcare rebate. All of these items, if you look at them, the awareness is extremely low. It means like 1 in 5 people actually are aware of these nationally. Now, when we asked the next question, which was, now they're aware of these benefits, which ones would you actually take up in the next 12 months? 1 in 2 would be taking up health insurance or additional leave. 1 in 3 would be looking to buy a new car. And there's new EV legislation out there, which employees can save up to $10,000 a year as compared to a normal consumer loan on a petrol vehicle. And 1 in 5 employees are looking at 1 or more of a new mobile phone, a new laptop, to do some more education and training, and to even get a better rig and work from home setup. So these are all take-home pay benefits, which are obviously on the top of everyone's mind, and they would pick them up, right, if they were offered them. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to just do a quick poll for everyone. And the poll question is, how robust are your take-home pay benefits? So that should pop up in just a moment. And what we'll do is we'll circulate these answers post-webinar, so you can have a view of those benefits and where you fit in terms of your sophistication. Okay, cool. I can see the answers zooming in here. Now, with that, I'd like to now hand it across to Mark, the CEO of Talent International. And so we've gone through that process of the quantitative benefits. It's very clear that the environment is facilitating a change in the benefits offering and the need for different take-home pay benefits. But benefits are only one pillar in an engagement strategy for your employees. So with that, Mark, I'd like to hand it across to you to take us through your view of what you see in the data and that case study that we talked about earlier. Over to you, Mark. And just to unmute, Mark.
That's a change. They always try and mute me and I won't listen. But thank you, David. That was really, really insightful. So appreciate it and appreciate the introduction. So if we have a look at it overall, my view is that the world of work is in a pretty bad state. If you think about it, and these numbers tie pretty much into your numbers, about 1 in 5 people are totally disengaged with their working environment. And that's through a combination of various things. But that means that 1 in 5 people actually don't like going to work. On the flip side, effectively 1 in 4 people actually like their roles, they love their organizations. On a Monday morning, they're really pumped up, they're excited about the opportunities for them. They're excited about their teammates, they're excited about the direction of the company. And the balance sort of sits somewhere in between, which is really, they're probably in survival mode. They've got financial stress, as you said, 1 in 2 people, but at the same time, they've got to make a living, so they go to work, they turn up, they do their jobs, they leave. They haven't got that passion and that excitement for what they're doing. So as leaders of organizations and P&C people, it is up to us to change it. Everybody always thinks, well, it's somebody else's job. No. If you're a leader of a team, it is your job to make sure that people that work with you and people that report into you are passionate about their roles and they are really excited about what they do. So I'd just like to highlight some of the things that we've done at Talent and some of the things that have worked in order to build out engagement. There are effectively five core areas that if you get right, you're going to impact your engagement. And to me, if you've got that good culture, that equals strong engagement, that improves people's wellness. And by doing that, you can then make a difference in your team's lives. So if we flick to the next slide. Okay, so the first thing is clarity of purpose. Okay, so we all need a cause that we can get behind. I mean, how many times have you helped somebody out, whether it's at work or not at work, helped a friend? You really feel good about that. So what is the overall purpose of why your business exists? And what that does, that then moves your short-term thinking to more long-term thinking. It gives you a reason to come to work. And that really allows you, that flows onto your mission and your values. The next thing is development and job fit. Development is the number one driver of engagement globally. If people don't feel that they're developing, they really don't feel that they have the opportunity to grow. But also, as we go back to the financial stuff, they don't have they don't feel they've got the benefit to increase their remuneration. If people have got the right development opportunities and they see themselves moving up the corporate ladder or have the opportunities to perhaps find another role somewhere else because they're growing and they're learning and developing, that makes a huge difference in terms of security. By development, we don't just mean sending people on courses. That's not development. Development is really giving people the opportunity within the organization and working in a safe environment to make mistakes, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow. And then if you bring that all back, what does that mean? That means we need to take away the fear of making mistakes and not nailing things on the first time. At Talent, we've got a philosophy whereby if you're not making mistakes, we're in the status quo, you're in your comfort zone, and we're not moving forward. So the other component of development is making sure that we got mentors, we got mentees, and you can have those real and open discussions with people in the organization. The next bit, which is to me just as important, is job fit. So people need to be given the right opportunity to be the best that they can. And if you're really good at something, you tend to enjoy it. So myself, I'm hopeless at ball games, golf, tennis, cricket, whatever they are. But I'm really good at running and swimming and those type of sports. So at school, obviously, I moved towards those type of sports, and I hated PT when we had to play cricket or whatever it was. And it's the same with work. If you think about the things that you enjoy doing, it's the things that you're really good at. A few examples. We had this amazing person in payroll. They were exceptional, but she really couldn't nail the attention to detail, but she was really good at getting stuff done. So an opportunity came out in ops, and generally what we do is we try hire within the organization and give people the chance to do things that they're really passionate about. Did she really smash in ops? Because the role was less about the detail, but it was more about getting shit done. And she nailed it, and she's one of our top performers. She'll probably be the head of operations one day. So that just shows you that if you put people in the right roles, generally they're a lot happier and they achieve a lot more. The third thing, and this for me is probably one of the most important things, you want to create an environment where there's no fear, people are trusted, because that obviously is going to increase your wellness, especially your mental health. There are three types of fear that at Talent we really aim to take away, and we would like to have open conversations with people if they feel that there are any of these types of fear that are holding them back. The first one is fear of bringing your whole self to work and people finding out who you are. This for me is very important. As a gay guy 25 odd years ago working in investment banking, I couldn't be my whole self, and as soon as I moved roles into another organization, straight away, and I could come out straight away, this weight was just lifted. And it really allowed me to do my best and to focus on my career and to focus on doing well. The next type of fear is the fear of failure, and that ties back to the development that I mentioned earlier. And then the last type of fear is, and probably the one that gets people down the most, is an erratic boss. Okay, a boss that one day loves you, you're doing a great job, the next day ignores you and can't stand you. And for some reason, it's nothing to do with you, but you think it's something to do with you. You internalize that. And it's really something to do with what's going on in that person's life. So that comes down to, as leaders, people who manage other people, we need to make sure that we're authentic and vulnerable with people around us. Because if they know Mark's having a bad day, as I was on Monday because I was jet lagged, just say, listen, I'm jet lagged, not 100%. It's not because of you that I may be a bit cranky. And that comes back to having that open conversation. We have a thing called Sunday Scaries. If we can have in the organization, nobody has Sunday Scaries, which means on a Sunday night, you're not anxious about the next week, but you are so excited, you are engaged, you're thinking, wow, I'm really happy to go to work. I've got a great team. I love what I do. I'm growing, I'm developing. I feel I'm part of the journey. So that is, for us, the way we try and build. And it really comes back to having those real conversations. Okay, the next component is to celebrate, recognize, and reward. And this comes back to the benefits component. Celebration is what's celebrated, what gets repeated, because people realize, no, this is, we've done a great job on this. Okay, well, I'll do the same thing again. And obviously, celebration also creates that camaraderie, that purpose of camaraderie in teams, which is crucial. Recognition doesn't always have to be financial. Amazing how many times if you say to someone, oh, that was a fantastic meeting, really appreciate you, did a great job, you just see their faces light up. People love recognition. In Australia, this is one of the most important drivers of engagement, is recognition. We want to be recognized when we're doing well. And also we want to be told in a nice way when we're not doing well, but we can see it as a growth opportunity. Then the next one is around reward. So in my view, reward should be a combination of your base salary plus a bonus and a commission if you stretch yourself and you go beyond. And that in some ways may help organizations deal with the increase in salaries and pay. Often what we do is someone says, I'm really battling. We say, okay, well, you've done an amazing job, but here's some stretch targets. Let's see how you go with those. And that could be a solution. And then obviously there's a long-term incentive as well, which if you want to get everybody pulling in the same direction, you need an equity plan where everybody's got a stake. And that's something that we introduce to talent. And then you get the benefits, which is a whole nother scenario by themselves. And I'll come to that on the next slide. Okay, so now we've got our purpose. We know what the business stands for. We can see ourselves growing. We love our jobs because we're good at them. We're not scared. We trust people, management, and the people that report and trust us. Our mental health is really good because we're taking away the fear. We celebrate our wins. We believe we paid what's fair. Yes, in these times it's often not what we need, but yeah, and then we recognize. And then on top of that, once we've got that purpose, we then need to say, okay, so what is the strategy of the business? Where's the business going to in the next few years? Yes, that strategy is going to pivot. And then what myself, Mark, what do I contribute as part of that strategy? What is my role on the journey? And what is the outcome? And I think if you can nail these 5, I think you're a long way in terms of people being engaged, happy, and enjoying coming to work. Okay, so next thing is let's look at the numbers. And why this is important is because often it's getting a bit better now, but when we introduced all these changes 5 years ago, a lot of the stuff was quite new in terms of engaged versus disengaged team members. So in some ways, you may have to sell this to the board or to the CEO if they're still a bit old school, that why it makes sense to have a fully engaged team. And here are some stats that we've pulled off Gallup and various other sources, but you can see it's a no-brainer. Okay, so when the year we introduced all this stuff, what we had to do was we had to restructure some of our team members who just wouldn't fit into the way we wanted to work, certain behavioral issues, and that obviously has an impact on the business. So for that year, the business went flat. But since then, the EBITDA of the business has grown about fivefold. And that's really because of the team. In terms of the engagement, Gallup Top 40 Global Workplaces, 4 years in a row. And that is, we believe, our secret sauce in the organization. So, for example, people are 21% more productive. And it's obvious if you love what you're doing. If you're disengaged, you're going to take more sickies. You're going to be 30% higher absenteeism, as an example. But they're just a few, and I can send out these slides if we need them afterwards. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now let's have a look at the benefits. When we looked at our benefits, the idea that we came up with was, we can put in all the benefits that we want to talent, but what's the point? People need to go through and work out what are the benefits that they want to help them. And some of them are financial, but a lot of them are just improving people's work-life balance. You can't always nail the 1 in 2 financial stuff, but you can help on all the other aspects by just thinking out the box a bit. Okay, so first thing was, so Talent Anywhere. So coming off the back of COVID, I would say about 70% of our business people weren't born in Australia. A lot of them hadn't seen their parents or families for a long time. So people were saying, well, what do I do? That was the time of the Great Resignation, where people wanted to resign because they just wanted a break. We said, okay, you can go work anywhere in the world for 4 weeks, and you can take 2 weeks holiday. So that really gave people 6 weeks to go and reconnect with their families. And that for us was the wellness component. Talent Time Out, 6 days a year, focus on your mental health, where you can rest and recharge. We don't want people to take it as annual leave. And on those days, you just switch your phone off and you just do something that you want to do. You spoil yourself. Paid parental leave. This is financial. 18 weeks of full paid parental leave, as well as 52 weeks of full paid superannuation. Why the superannuation is so important is because women often have less superannuation. Well, they do have less superannuation than men, because effectively the time that they take off on maternity leave, they lose their superannuation. That's not paid. So we make that good and we pay out the superannuation. Health and well-being. The combination is an allowance, and that's pre-tax, to spend on health enhancing activities, but also we have headspace for everyone in the business, including our contractors. And we also have an EAP where people get 6 free sessions of counseling. And often if people do want more, they can come to us and we'll sort that out. Flexible working. Working your own home, set it up, and you can do that pre-tax. Then the next one is Talent Learn Anytime, and that is really having an LMS whereby people can pull down courses that they want. We use Skillsoft as an example, as one of the platforms, but people can learn as they go. We believe in that people have to own their careers and what they want to learn. We provide the tools. It's not up to us to say this is what your career is going to be. You need to own with us, and we'll provide you with opportunities. Rise Day, that's our foundation, Talent Rise. EAP I've covered. Social team events, these are great, a lot of fun. But at the same time, the social team events, yes, that they're nice. They do build the camaraderie, but we need to make sure that we don't just effectively use them as band-aids, because the fundamental core of the business isn't working, and you just take people out on the Friday or every third or fourth week and have a big party. That's not going to solve the long-term issues within the organization. Talent equity plan. So we've got a long-term incentive called the One Team Incentive, whereby everybody in the organization has indirectly a stake in the business. And it's based on a combination of how the business does, how your branch and your team do, and how you do. So that really links that back into the one team structure, the way we work. And then salary packaging. So this is a no-brainer. It doesn't cost the company anything. It just takes a bit of thought. The best way is just to get your firm who does your accounting and just say to them, okay, come up with a benefits package. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's a lot of stuff you can do there, and obviously we're all concerned about the after-tax costs and after-tax salary. Other thing we do is we allow people to sacrifice more into super. We also, and this was initiated in the UK, as some of you may know, the power prices went up 5x within a year, and people on the lower salaries in the organization, for them that was going up from £100 to say £500. They just couldn't meet it. They went to loan sharks, and we said, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll put a bridge in place until this gets sorted out. So it's just a lot of the benefits that we have are to meet a particular situation. The benefits need to be revisited all the time because things change. Tax rules change, but also people's day-to-day work-life balance requirements change. For example, Talent Anywhere, we pulled that back to 4 weeks now from 6 weeks because people, obviously, they've had a chance to meet their families and go see them. So those are just some ideas, but these are ideas that came from the business that people in the organization wanted. And probably the one that was most well received was probably Talent Anywhere, but also paid parental leave. That for us was just the superannuation component was really, really an exceptional benefit. Okay, so our engagement rate, 87% engaged. That means that 87% of our team really love coming to work. They see opportunities for them. They're passionate about it. They don't have fear. And we've got, I think, 3% disengaged. And obviously, for me, if I can get that 3% down to 0, I think we've done a great job. Okay, so summary. Non-monetary benefits are different from Band-Aid benefits. By Band-Aid benefits, I mean, people, they're not really happy. What we'll do is we'll go out on a Friday night, go for a dinner. Everybody has 25 beers and people will be happy again. Yes, maybe for the time they're having their 25 beers, they will be happy, but they're not going to change the fundamental engagement. It's Band-Aid. It's a short-term fix. You've got to do the other stuff. And in some ways, it is quite daunting because it may mean a lot of restructuring in the business. But once you've done it, it's going to set the business up for long term. And then ensure the benefits are meaningful and add real value to people's working lives. Once again, you don't want the Band-Aid things and just a few little incentives here and there. They must really help change people's lives. And then to me, as I said before, most important thing is an amazing culture equals strong engagement, and that equals wellness across everyone. Financial wellness may be difficult to nail in its entirety, but if we can even go somewhere in that, but if we can nail all the other components, mental health, we can get that people have got passion and they love coming to work. I think as leaders and P&C people, we've done our job, and hopefully in some ways we're making a small difference into what, based on the stats, seems to be a pretty dire world of work at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mark. And that was really insightful. I think that especially the Talent Anywhere piece was just deep empathy, right? Which comes back to the organization. It's really wonderful to hear. So everyone who's listening on the webinar, you've seen the data that I talked about. And I think kind of my perspective on the wonderful execution from Talent is not only empathy, but also, benefits done right. And I think with that, Sinead, I'll hand it across to you to kind of pull everything together from a practitioner's perspective. So, what can the audience learn from the data, from the case study, and from the execution that Mark and I have talked about today?
Thanks, David.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. I'm Sinead, VP of People and Culture at Flair. And yes, trying to pull together the benefit of this incredible data that we've got access to, and then having a look at what best in class looks like for benefits is really, it's a challenge in how we actually can pull together some meaningful solutions for those of us on the call that may not have be in a position to give such a great benefits offering. So I'm here to just talk to some potential solutions in terms of how the benefits can play a meaningful role and advantage your team members from a financial position, just that little bit more further at the moment. But I have been really thinking about what our role is as business leaders and people and culture professionals that are on the call, particularly in this challenging time. And I think there's an opportunity for us to be incredibly purposeful and strategic around how we tailor the solutions and our total remuneration offering and how those benefits can play that pivotal role. So DCB talked to a lot around the macro environment at the moment and the particular challenge that we face. So with inflation and interest rates continuing to go up, typically we'd see the spending start to curb and go down, but that's not a trend that we're seeing at the moment. And you know, the cost of housing data that DCB pulled up is a testament as to why that spending is not being able to be curbed at the moment. But we know that even with salary growth in individual companies, if you're seeing salary growth slightly increase this year or wage growth, you being able to invest in some wage growth, we know it's just not financially viable for the businesses to be able to meet that inflation. So it is more for us to consider how we address through our EVP and our total offering, the bridging of the delta that exists between inflation and wage growth at the moment. And we see benefits as a real way of doing so. All right. So my camera has gone for a second. So given this is an issue which is impacting our team members quite differently according to the level of role in the organisation, there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution for this. So I think it's something to call out, and one thing that will be a challenge as you continue to work through what your total remuneration offering is. I think it's also important to call out that we are not financial advisors. So we can often have a tendency to want to solve problems for our team members and the individuals, but we shouldn't be in a position where we tell our team members how to spend or save or generate their own income. So we shouldn't put that pressure on ourselves to do that. But what we can do is play a really important role around education and enablement. And so how do we enable the right level of conversations with our team members to ensure that they are able to stretch their pre and post-tax dollars further using the benefits that they have access to? So if we have a look at the next, thank you. So typically, as you know, DCB talked to earlier around the potential smorgasbord of benefits on offering that people have on offer to them through companies. And I've definitely seen a laundry list of those before. And I think that benefits have typically been a lever to pull in the attraction of talent to an organisation. And so how can we consider leading with benefits as a key retention tool? Whilst it was playing that role currently and previously, how do we actually really double down on that in the next 12 to 18 months as inflation continues on the rise? And so one of the solutions that we're currently looking at Flair at the moment is the repositioning of the benefits offering. So we're considering a transition from a suite of soft benefits to an offering of hard benefits. Now, what does that mean? Soft and hard, it can mean many different things. But how I think about this is considering soft and hard benefits in two ways. One is in the context of the type of spend or the type of benefit. So is this a benefit that's an essential or a cost of living value or benefit to the individual compared with as a luxury or a nice to have benefit? So that's something that you can start to consider in terms of your total benefit offering, is where you would actually classify the benefits as either being essential or cost of living or a luxury or a nice to have. Is it a pre or post tax benefit or a benefit which helps to advance the team member's financial position? So we talked back to the coffee pods in the top 3 benefits voted by those in the survey. Is that coffee pods in the office offering something that's just a nice to have compared to financial advice or financial planning, which will genuinely further the financial position of the individual at this point in time? And that's definitely a hard benefit or something that's really financially helping the individual. So I think we also need to be really clear with the benefit offering with the team member, whether or not it is that pre or post-tax benefit. So, and being able to actually talk to the benefit in how it saves you X number of dollars, or when it's used, and how you can actually avoid a percentage kind of positioning where possible, because it is much harder for our team members to contextualize the percentage compared with a cost. And an example, so if we're able to quantify the value of the benefits on offer in a way which gives context to that individual, the value to the team member. If we look at health insurance, for example, if we're able to communicate that to the team member in a way which says, over the next calendar year or financial year, you'll get X number of dollars or $800 savings through going with this particular benefit offering from the company. Now, if they're considering that cost of housing, so if their mortgage has gone up or their rent increases significantly up each month, then they're able to actually put that benefit offering or value in the context of that particular outgoing or that financial obligation that they've currently got. And suddenly it becomes a huge amount more meaningful to the team member when you're able to talk in those terms. So I think in terms of specifying whether or not the benefit is enhancing the cost of living, or if it's a nice to have or luxury-based benefit, it also really gives control back to your team member at a time where financially they may not have a lot of control. So a lot of the trends we're seeing with inflation and the interest rates are out of their control and things that are happening to them. But if they're able to make an assessment on the type of spend that they are actually, or the value or the benefit they're using and how it in fact impacts their spend, then they've got the flexibility to do a bit more what they want with that particular spend. And one of the examples we've got here is the Flair Benefits app. That some of you on the call will have. And that really gives access to benefits that are both soft and hard benefits, or those that, if you're able to get some savings through your grocery shop, for example, maybe in the one shop, it doesn't feel like it's a particularly meaningful savings, but in totality, over a longer period of time, you'll start to see where that essential spend saving or this essential savings are coming through on that non-negotiable spend. But at the same time, there's discounts to the Iconic or JB Hi-Fi, where if they're seeing those savings come through, they've got the flexibility to understand whether or not they can actually make that luxury spend or make that purchase. Then there's the benefit of both being able to, they can weigh up which one is better fit for them in their current financial position. So if we're just actually looking at in terms of how we can, the previous slide was showing just how we can actually make that transition from a soft benefit offering to a harder benefit offering. And I think just in terms of summarizing that, it's really about moving from a laundry list of benefits to the utilization of benefits. And we can see in those previous examples that we've talked to that in terms of what the survey participants have actually voted in terms of what they want, if you actually show that in comparison with the utilisation, there's an inconsistency there. So when Mark was talking through the talent benefit offering there, I think it's absolutely imperative to go out to your team members and your organisations to see what they want. But I think the secondary part of that comparison is really to understand the utilisation of those benefits to ensure that their data inputs into what your tailored offering looks like. And now is as good a time as any to run that particular audit's benefit. We're doing that at the moment at Flair right now. And so I think it is something that, as also Mark pointed to, is the continual review of that is super important, particularly as our economic landscape is moving and will continue to change over the next 12 to 18 months. And then just that shift of language around a percentage from around a benefit or value of percentage to a monetary value or a dollar would be really meaningful and impactful for the individual or for your team members when you're talking about a total remuneration offering. So if we're looking at how that type of spend looks like or how we make that shift, we've got a bit of a case study of a benefit that we offer here at Flair. And I just wanted to talk to how that positioning could look like when you're actually making that transition. So at Flair, we've got an annual wellness budget, and where employees are gifted $1,000 each to spend on something that improves their wellness in relation to the 5 pillars of wellness. And we also give 2 annual leave days per year to every team member for them to actually take that time back, again, to spend that day on something that will help improve and further their wellness. So when it was launched, it was pitched, I believe, much more of a benefit for wellness, and a wellness-oriented benefit, not so much a financial benefit. But if you actually look at if you measure its cost and impact, it most certainly becomes a much harder benefit offering. So if we were to quantify this for the team members, and we've done this on the next slide, is if we can break it down in terms of the cost to the business and what the actual value is to the employee, you'll see that there's the $1,000 of the expense that is at a cost to the business, when in actual fact, it's a greater cost to the business when you consider the FBT on top of that. So it's actually far greater than the $1,000 per employee. And then you actually quantify what that means in terms of the monetary value in terms of days of work, as well as then the cost of being away from work for that time. Then suddenly there's a very different positioning for this particular benefit. And we're looking at around anywhere between $3,000 or $4,000 that could be then quantified for the individual to put in the context of their total remuneration offering. And I'm pretty sure if you were to hand that cash to one of your team members in an envelope in that way and say you have to spend it by the end of the year on one of these 5 pillars of wellness, they're probably not going to give it back to you. So it's actually really how you're having the positioning the benefit and having that conversation, which can extract the value for that team member. But the question will then lay in terms of the review, the question really then becomes, is it still a benefit that's utilised by your team members? Is it achieving its objective of actually promoting and improving wellness? And is it still relevant to all your team needs? And that's where it's come through this kind of final summary of pulling all of these ideas together in something tangible that you can take away back to your day-to-day, and something that you could actually do yourselves in your organisations in terms of how your benefits contribute to the total remuneration offering. And DCB has come up with this wonderful, the king of acronyms, as DCB says, he's come up with this wonderful acronym of ARTFUL, which is, if we've broken down in terms of the opportunity here, we first would then suggest conducting an audit of the benefits and how that is being tailored to retain your teams. Are they getting the value out of it? Are there any benefits that are, at the market expectations that you wouldn't necessarily want to remove, but there might be something of more value out there that it could be substituted for? And also what kind of roles in your organisation would benefit from those as well. So conducting an audit is something that I highly recommend doing, and particularly at this point in time. Repositioning your benefits such that they are quantifiable, as I've talked a lot about too, so moving from percentage to monetary value. And then that tailoring of the offering to the current climate or the climate that you're in for the types of roles that you have, because there's this opportunity then, if you consider the types of roles that are in your organisation, to bring more optionality into your offering. And that also gives that element of psychological control back to the team members so that they feel like they can access what they need and can better suit them. And then finally, there's this piece around training, the education and enablement piece, where training your managers in having the right level of conversations is going to be absolutely critical. How can you enable them to have the discussions and increase the education of what that benefit offering is? And could this actually even form part of their remuneration review discussions or part of their regular one-to-ones in how you're actually looking at what benefits they're accessing as a team member to help further better their financial position, as well as their mental and emotional well-being. We talked a bit earlier about people leave managers, and we know there's a lot of data to suggest that. So I'm just wondering, in a time where there's, we've got job security and financial stability being absolutely valued at the moment, are people going to leave organisations or companies who don't consider their financial position in the current economic climate? I think so. So I think running an audit is absolutely a tangible way to do this, which leads into our poll, I believe, DCB.
It does. It does. Thanks very much, Sinead. That was really, really helpful. And bad acronym aside, I really do think that this has impact. So we have two more quick poll questions, and then for the audience, we'll get into some Q&A if you have questions of Sinead, Mark, or I. So we want to ask you, we want to, at the end of this, get either confirm your benefits FOMO or deny it. So just if you want to ask this, and what we'll do is we'll circulate the answers to the attendees in here. So if you want to have a quick poll answer of this one. And really, as people are answering, and I can see the data coming through now, which is great. So thank you for your participation. But there is real criticality around the benefits mix and both its education, its communication. And I think that was one of the big things that came out of, for me, out of Sinead's piece, which was there is a way to nuance, to move from soft to hard with your existing benefits. And sometimes that's a really small change that can contextualize it for employees. So, and we'll get to the last poll question, which was, and as I mentioned before, both Talent and Flair, we have an opus of really powerful data that's available. And if you do want a sector or an industry-specific report of the data, as I mentioned in the open, we only touched about 3% of the data that's available from the national index. So you'd like a deep dive on it. If you'd like to speak to either Mark, Sinead, or I individually, we're happy to go through the data. So if you just want to answer this quick question, and then we'll move on to Q&A. Awesome. So thank you, everyone, for listening today. You get a look at our AI futures. Also, if anyone wants to be turned into a Lego character, I'm happy to help them for their avatar on LinkedIn. But we just want to open the floor to any questions, and we'll try and answer them the best as we can. All right. So we've got one question from Karen, and her question is, could you explain what take-home pay type benefits mean? So as we talked about take-home pay style benefits, those are the typical quantitative benefits. So Mark touched on them, on salary sacrificing is one example. Sinead actually talked about another one, which was some of the perhaps healthcare rebates that you're able to negotiate on behalf of your business. So that could be, better health insurance, to novated leases, to discounts and vouchers that you're offering to your employees. Really, those take-home pay benefits are those quantitative money-related benefits. And so if I kind of answer the question in the opposite way, things like a yoga retreat or breathing techniques or other, important benefits, those we would classify, at least in our terminology here at Flair, those are more of the soft benefits on that. Now, there's another question around, do talent pay the FBT on salary sacrifice items? For those items that we talked about today, so mobile phones, laptops, you have novated leases with the EV, those are all FBT exempt. And in actuality, the business may get a benefit because it actually lowers the payroll tax. So gone are the days of FBT exposure when it comes to salary sacrificing. We're kind of in a brave new world as it relates to the digitization of the process. So it's very lightweight, but also the FBT exposure is in many cases near zero. And Mark, we have a question.
Sorry, no, yeah, so if I could just add into that, I think with any FBT, any benefits around FBT, tax, etc., the best thing to do is put together, once your team has gone through their wish list and just bounce it off your accountant to make sure that you're doing it right, because it is a bit of a minefield. And then you also, if you speak to your accountant, get them involved, they may actually have a list of benefits which they see, which you haven't even thought about. So just bring them in the loop.
Yeah, certainly. Now, Mark, we've got a question from Joe for you, Talent Anywhere. Who pays for the travel and accommodation in those weeks that you offer, that 4-week plus 2-week that you offered post-COVID?
The individual.
The individual. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there's no, so the benefit is really just, it's a flexibility thing, that people obviously have to pick up their own cost. However, if you do want to take some annual leave over that time, you're obviously paid while you're on leave. So you're really working, but you're working remote. That's all you're doing.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Now, Melinda has a question. Her question is, we've got a mix of employees and contractors, and it'd be good to hear a little bit of the differences in what benefits may be available to contractors. It's a really good question, Melinda. So as it relates to FBT exempt items, or those quantitative items, so typically discount vouchers, store cards, what we call post-tax benefits, they're available to all. right? And they're available through our app and through other services that are out there in the marketplace. As a result, as it relates to pre-tax benefits, it really comes down to the upfront payment. Now, mobile phones, laptops, those items are typically the employee pays out of pocket and then are reimbursed by the business on that. So all those smaller FBT exempt items are available to both contractors and to full and part-time employees. As it relates to novated leases, which is typically a large ticket item, and many people, 70% of Australians get finance for it. Prior to this year, contractors were unavailable to get financing. I'd like to say that Flair, we have a new product that actually allows contractors and labor hire individuals to actually get financing for a novated lease. So that has actually increased the pool of availability of benefits for contractors and casuals as well. There are criteria that you have to fall within for the credit application, but those are available as of June 1st this year. So if you'd like to know more, please reach out to the Flair team and we can give you a detail on that, and that extends out to anyone who's on the call. So there's a couple more questions, but we're at time now. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and particularly Mark and Sinead, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy days. It's much appreciated. And we really do hope that all of you who are listening in today learn something new. And if you're keen to get the data from either Talent for their More Money salary guide or Flair for our National Benefits Index, please reach out and we'll be happy to help you out. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Sinead.
Thanks all. Thanks both. Bye.
Bye. Bye.